Hello there, YouTube. How the devil are we all? I'm okay. Thank you for asking. Now, this one's going to be an unscripted ramble on a topic because I just wanted to get some thoughts out there, sort of get ahead of a far right talking point that will be around over certainly the next couple of days. Right, the story surrounds an absolutely horrific event in Pennsylvania, in Americana land, at a synagogue where parishioners, do they call Jewish attendees parishioners? Anyway, whatever. Jewish attendees to a synagogue were brutally slaughtered. It seems that 8 were killed, and there have been various other injuries. And the person has been detained now. The perpetrator has been detained. And supposedly he was heard to be shouting as he was killing Jewish people in the synagogue, "All Jews must die." Obviously, a disgusting act. I mean, I really don't need to go into that. And this video isn't about the actual event itself, because that and the details surrounding it are sort of still unfolding, right? But it's about the reaction to it, and one very, very disingenuous and frankly dishonest part of that. Now, considering the story that took place there, or is I suppose it's still ongoing technically, in Pennsylvania, some people have been connecting that to at least philosophically or whatever, to the MAGA bomber thing. You know, the guy sending pipe bombs to leading Democrats and critics of Donald Trump, which may or may not end up being sort of true in a sense. But if you found out that this really, really anti-Semitic piece of garbage who shot up some Jewish people, would you be surprised to hear that he was a Donald Trump fanatic? I certainly fucking wouldn't. You know, you'd be very surprised if he ended up being anything other than that, really. But whatever. Yeah, so it seems to me a really a fairly logical inference, at least in the short term, till we find out exactly what went on. Yeah, and linking those things together as Donald Trump having inspired far-right bastards to be violent and murderous towards people they don't like, which again I think is very a perfectly logical and consistent with reality take on things. Like he's used violent rhetoric surrounding these his political opponents around various different religious groupings. Yeah, so it seems to me perfectly logical that's the link that's being drawn there. But the far right, or should I say Trump's base, have come up with this incredibly disingenuous point of saying that, well, Trump can't possibly be in any way to blame for the synagogue attack because he's never been anti-Semitic. Now that just isn't fucking true, for a number of reasons. And I'd like to go through a few of those now. And again, this is not scripted, so apologies if I miss out any points. And if there are, leave them in the comment section below, where he's been anti-Semitic and I didn't bring it up. There are a number of issues. Firstly, I'd like to go back all the way to the opening weeks, indeed, of his presidency, where he and his administration released a Holocaust Memorial Day statement. Now, you might say to yourself, well, how is that anti-Semitic? One very important thing, he didn't mention the Jewish people at all in that statement, which is the very, very thin end of the Holocaust denial wedge. It's a process that his fanboys were absolutely ecstatic about, which is referred to as the de-Judification of the Holocaust, where usually it's expressed as the hyper-focus on non-Jewish victims of the Holocaust. But in this instance, it's just the erasure completely of any Jewish religious / racial, cultural targeting within the Holocaust, by basically not mentioning them at all, even though it was the primary, Jewish people were the primary focus of the industrial slaughter that happened in the camps in Central Europe at the hands of the Nazis. So that's, like I say, it's called de-Judification, whereby you try and make it not about the Jews, even though it was mostly about the Jews. And his far right fanboys, Trump's base, absolutely loved it because they hear the dog whistle. This is the thing: the centrist pricks out there will say, "Oh, well, that's not necessarily anything," but it's not meant for them. The dog whistle is for his far right people because he knows he can't just come out and say kill all the Jews or whatever. And I'm not saying he would even want to come out and say that, but he knows he can't be that overt about it. So he has to be more dog whistly about it, and that de-Judification statement was meant for them. It was meant for the far right to say, look, I'm not going to be pandering to the Jews type thing. Yeah, which is pretty disgusting in of itself. To take the Holocaust and make it about pandering to the far right is really rather sickening from the man who supposedly is supposed to be the leader of the free world. What a disgusting, abhorrent lie that is. Anyway, but it doesn't stop there, of course. We must remember when Charlottesville happened, the Charlottesville rally, at which a far right terrorist killed Heather Heyer, was attempting to kill several other people by driving into them. Trump turned around and said that there were very good people on both sides. Now, he's referring to people who were walking on the street chanting, "Jews will not replace us," amongst other things like blood and soil, various other incredibly racist things that anti-Semites sing, neo-Nazi pricks sing their chants. Now, please do tell me who amongst the crowd at Charlottesville were the very fine people to which Trump referred. Because I don't know about you, but if you refer to a group of people singing "Jews will not replace us," and you say that some of those people were very fine people, you're at the very least pandering extremely to anti-Semites. And I would suggest you're being an anti-Semite yourself. Saying that very fine people, or that you can sing Jews or chant "Jews will not replace us" and still be a very fine person. If that's something you believe, you're an anti-Semite. It's very fucking simple. Yeah. Also, of course, relatively recently, he named him by name rather than just sort of skirting around topics to that degree. He named George Soros, didn't he? He bought into and gave a megaphone to the incredibly anti-Semitic, disgusting conspiracy theory that George Soros runs all of the leftist groups. George Soros wants to kill all of the white babies. George Soros is the most evil man in the history of existence. Death to the George Soros devil. Thing. Yeah, I think he insisted that George Soros was funding the Caravan, the group of are they Nicaraguan or Dominican or whatever? I did some apologies for my geographical illiteracy there. Central/Southern American immigrants who are looking to go through Mexico into the United States, which Trump again is starting to use as a racist dog whistle. What a surprise! It's not just the Jews he's against. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, he said that George Soros was part of that. So he's buying into that anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Also, the fact that he took, was it 4 days or something ridiculous to denounce David Duke, the former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Again, it's all meant as dog whistle because they know his far right base are clever enough to know that he has to come out and disavow David Duke. Of course he does. But the fact that it took so long and that he specifically refused to answer questions on it during that period is a sort of nod and a wink to neo-Nazis. That's essentially what he's fucking doing there. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. And of course, went on to Alex Jones' show, a well-known purveyor of the Soros anti-Semitic dipshittery. I said, you will not be disappointed. I won't disappoint you, was the phrase he used, wasn't it? I mean, the fact that he even went on his show, I think, is pretty conclusive. But I won't disappoint you. Again, nodding to Alex Jones that his conspiracy theorist far right fucking whack jobbery was what he wanted to take into the White House, and indeed it is what he's taken into the White House. It's all really rather sickening. So there we go. And no amount of his ridiculous support for Israel means that he's not an anti-Semite, okay? Because it's sort of anti-Semitic in a way, actually, to say that if you support Israel, therefore you're pro-Jewish, because a lot of the hardline Israeli government members and things want to equate Israel with all Jewish people. But that isn't the case. In fact, some of the most passionate and eloquent people I've ever heard on the topic, speaking out against the actions of the Israeli government, have been Jewish people, mainly from Britain, but some in America as well, of course. So yeah, to equate Israel with all Jewish people in the world is quite anti-Semitic in itself, really. And also, he's not doing that because he gives a fuck about Jewish people. He's pandering to the religious conservative idiots who want biblical prophecy to come true, so that the end of the world will come. Like it's so ridiculous. But he's not doing any of that to support Jewish people. So if you want to spam that shite into the comment section, feel free, but I will just ignore you. And I advise everyone else to as well, because to use the argument that Donald Trump and his administration can't be held in any way responsible for, creating a fear of political violence against religious minorities is so fucking untrue that it renders you nothing more than a propagandist and a liar. Donald Trump and its administration are anti-Semitic. That's all I have to say. Thank you all for listening and watching. To all the wonderful Jewish people I know that were within my subscriber base and that will watch this video, for what it's worth, I stand with you in solidarity at this moment of horrific targeting that's taking place, not just in Pennsylvania, but there's been a rising tide of anti-Semitism, certainly in the Western world, for quite some time, and I stand with you in solidarity. No pass around.